MTN News. This is Positively Montana, sponsored by Whitefish Credit Union.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Positively Montana. I'm Tim McGonigal. We're bringing you stories from across the state, highlighting the good. These stories feature people doing good things, trying to make a difference in helping those in need. Throughout the next half hour, we'll bring you uplifting stories, including how a school is helping feed students all summer long, and a cancer treatment center being built in an underserved area. But let's begin in Yellowstone National Park. It's not just a place of beauty, it's also a place of history. MTN's Russ Riesinger takes us to Red Lodge, where one part of that history is being kept alive and running.
Here she goes. I had to make John nervous.
Don and John Mueller are brothers who share a love of the history of the nation's oldest national park and the old buses that used to tour it in the years before World War II.
Hi, Joe. My cousin.
We're taking a ride in a 1937 Yellowstone National Park touring bus, one of the vehicles acquired by the Buses of Yellowstone Preservation Trust.
We decided we should do something to preserve the history and keep it here close to the park. So that's how it came about. They're unique in design, that they were specifically designed for touring, and they're one of the icons of the park. They're very recognizable worldwide.
Started beating the bushes for buses that were sitting in barns on farms, and some people would start to contact us and we'd gather vehicles that way.
The buses, along with a couple of even older Lincoln touring cars from the 20s, and a 1941 Ford Park utility truck are all on display at this historic former service station in Red Lodge.
They were all complete, but they all were mouse hotels, if you will.
There's a story behind each vehicle.
And this lower photograph is him pulling it out of the shed that he parked it in 45 years earlier. We changed the oil, dropped the oil out of that, and it was clean. Like they just changed it before they put it away.
Not only can you look, you can also take a ride in one of the buses.
We'll take bus 401 up the highway today, up the Beartooth Highway.
They have a top end of about 32 miles an hour and cruise very comfortably at about 17.
We don't measure the mileage necessarily, but smiles per mile. We get lots of smiles per mile, but they actually get about 10 miles to the gallon.
I just think that this is an important part of our history, our local history and our national history, and we're just delighted to be able to display it to the public.
In Red Lodge, photographer Justin Hosep, I'm Russ Riesinger for MTN News.
You might think you hit a sour note if you were diagnosed with cancer and had to go through chemotherapy treatment, but that did not stop Luke Heupel from facing the music with grace, completing his freshman year as a trumpet player at MSU. How he did it is impressive, but his attitude is even more inspiring. He says there's a higher power to thank for his strength, and as you're about to hear, his musical gifts. Shout to the Lord, recorded during his second round of chemo. You don't need me to tell you Luke Heupel is talented. Just listen.
I really like orchestra type stuff.
Indeed, it was music that put Luke on the radar of MSU faculty long before his senior year at Kalispell. Skills as a musician and composer that would land Luke a scholarship in the School of Music. Everything in Luke's life was moving in harmony until a sudden illness would change the tune.
I got just a little cough. Eventually they did some more tests and found that I had leukemia.
He calls it an unexpected blessing of the COVID pandemic. Thanks to that concern, they caught the cancer early, but there was a long road ahead. He was flown to Denver for 6 months of treatment, including round after round of chemotherapy.
You know, sometimes you just look back on it and you're like, did that actually happen?
He took with him his faith, a plan to stay on track at MSU, and of course, his trumpet.
Yeah, the trumpet just gave me something to do.
He attended his music classes via Zoom, even during those 5 intense rounds of chemo. Instructor, Dr. Sarah Stonebach.
We'd pull down the big screen and it would be Luke on the screen. Witnessing that was humbling.
She said he always came prepared. Luke managed to find multiple ways to practice in the hospital, in spite of the fact a trumpet isn't exactly quiet.
Yeah, so the trumpet, it's a really loud instrument, but I had this one nurse and she'd always find spots in the hospital that I could play. Yeah, the coolest one was she got me on top of the helicopter pad.
He was able to attend one pop-up concert on campus at the end of the semester.
Yeah, that was really cool to actually play with other people.
Is there a healing power in music?
Yes, I think so.
Luke reminds us we all have spiritual gifts, and he is thankful for his.
The reason that I was able to put on a smile every day is because it's my love for God and all that He's done for me. Even though, you know, I'm going through these bad things, you know, He was with me the whole time. Even when I thought my world was falling apart, without my faith in Him, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Luke remains healthy now and looks forward to completing his sophomore year on campus at MSU. For Positively Montana, MTN News, I'm Holly Brantley.
Sometimes we don't need a handout. What we need is a hand up, and that's exactly what teachers and staff are doing at this Bozeman school.
We want to meet families where they're at and provide support at all levels.
One of the ways they're doing this is through the Whittier School Wildcat Grocery Plus program.
It's a place where any family at Whittier can come access clothing, personal care items, enrichment like books, art supplies, and foods.
The concept came after educators wanted to provide more support for their students.
If parents are feeling stress at home, that child's going to be feeling stress, and we can help enhance positive outcomes for our students by supporting their families too.
So how does it work?
Sometimes we know just through general conversation what a family would like, or we send the Google form via text, email, however they would like, to the family, and then they fill it out. That gets sent to my email. We pack up the box and just text them when it's ready to be picked up.
The Whittier team didn't want the summer break to become a barrier, so they came up with a witty solution.
Just because school stops doesn't mean any needs stop.
We received funding from the United Way's COVID relief grant to purchase grocery gift cards for families over the summer.
School officials hope other educators see this story and are inspired to implement something like this at their school. Reporting at Whittier, Annie Johnson, MTN News.
I'm Katie Miller in Missoula, here at the Watson Children's Shelter, where they're receiving a donation of some solar panels that they say will help them save money and give all that back to the kids.
There are a lot of lovely people that do beautiful things all the time. And just because it goes unnoticed doesn't mean it's not happening. It happens here every day.
The Watson Children's Shelter has served Missoula kids in need for the past 50 years.
And it's kids who experienced abuse or neglect or abandonment.
They provide housing, food, and support for about 100 kids every year. But it takes a lot to run an operation like that.
You won't believe how expensive our energy bill is every month.
And now they're getting some help. Static Solar reached out to the shelter after hearing some of their stories of child neglect and abuse. They say they don't have much money to donate, but they were moved by the stories and wanted to do what they can. That's why they're donating some solar panels.
And they're usually a 3-man crew, 2 on the roof, 1 sends the panels up, 2 always on safety harness and high vis installing it.
B.D. ERICKSON II calls the shelter workers heroes.
You see a need or a level of suffering as a human, we are compelled. We're compelled to help people. You want to take action.
These panels will save Watson up to $400 a month on energy bills.
While that's not, life-changing, it sure makes your day.
We can reallocate those funds to going directly to the children who are in our shelters, directly to the families that we're working with.
Static Solar says a project like this would normally cost about $40,000, but they're doing this all for free. In Missoula, Katie Miller, MTN News.
When we come back, we're taking you to Lewistown, where residents will soon have more options for cancer care. Plus, thanks to generous donations, a small library will soon be able to undergo some much-needed renovations. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
More stories from the heart of the Treasure State are on the way when Positively Montana continues after this, sponsored by Whitefish Credit Union. Welcome back to Positively Montana, sponsored by Whitefish Credit Union.
CMR assistant football coach Jake Jarrett is a giving man. In his free time, he's here at the football field scouring footage of opponents and helping out defensive backs. His full-time job is working as a juvenile detention teacher for Cascade County. Oh, and yeah, he's a bone marrow donor. This past May, Jarrett was matched with a patient in need of a bone marrow transplant based on his blood type, and without complaint, stepped up and gave a part of himself to help a stranger.
I just hope it helps, and even if they don't reach out, just knowing that I did my part, and hopefully it helped in the end.
Like, whoa, I mean, that's a really cool thing. I mean, it didn't surprise us that Jake was doing that because he's that kind of guy. But until you know somebody that does something like that, I mean, it's just you just don't realize how heroic that, Jake really is.
Helping others in need is what Jarrett does best with his full-time job as a teacher at the Cascade County Juvenile Detention Center in Great Falls, which presents its own fun challenges.
It's just relationship building. You just have to get those kids to trust you because they're coming from places that a lot of adults around them they don't really have a great trust with, and that's another thing that's cool to see, just the small strides that those kids make and things like that.
Jarrett has coached at the college and middle school levels, but in the last 2 years returned to his former high school and has acted as a positions coach on defense.
What people need to know about Jake Jarrett is he's a player's coach. Kids relate to him. He gets kids jacked up and hyped and ready to go. A lot of energy that he brings to the field.
I think it's just those relationships that you get to form with the kids, seeing them from even last year to this year, just the personal growth in not only terms of their physical abilities, but their mental abilities as well.
For MTN Sports, I'm Dylan Foreman.
Over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Billings Food Bank's Farm to Trunk program has exploded with popularity. On an average 3-day run, food bank volunteers give out 1,500 boxes full of food to people, no questions asked, in the food bank parking lot. Billings Food Bank Executive Director Cheryl Shandy said the federal program that supplies a portion of the food for the events ended at the start of July. But people should keep an eye out for more of the events throughout the remainder of the month. Shandy said the food bank is seeing about 2.5 times its normal number of users. The demographic of who utilizes the service usually shakes out into thirds, with a third of the people being 19 or younger, a third of them being families, and the last third are seniors. Shandy said even with the increased need, the food bank's ability to help has also increased. Between federal COVID-19 relief money, the regular budget, and donations, staff purchased $200,000 worth of food with a 2-year expiration date. Shandy said the local community is always great at supporting the food bank.
But it's dated for 2 years. So we don't have to worry about it expiring on our shelves, and we don't have to worry about whether we're going to have a source for the things that we use. So we've gotten really well stocked, and people have been so generous. It's just amazing. The community and the businesses here have been so supportive, and I'm sure that is the same story with anybody that's doing what we do.
After the Farm to Trunk programs wrap up in July, the drive-through element of the distribution may carry over into other food bank events. However, Shandy said they may move to a punch card system, where people will have to give their name in order to receive food. In Billings, Mitch Lagge, MTN News.
After receiving a $6 million grant, the Central Montana Medical Center in Lewistown is getting a new comprehensive cancer center. The Central Montana Medical Center in Lewistown announced plans to add a new comprehensive cancer center to their facility after receiving a grant from a global philanthropy. The $6 million grant was given by the Leona M. and Harry B. Helmsley Charitable Trust that has contributed more than $3 billion for a wide range of charitable purposes all over the world. The Comprehensive Cancer Center will fill a coverage gap for patients across 9 rural counties in central Montana. The project will provide high-quality cancer care closer to home for nearly 50,000 central Montana residents.
The main reason we do it is because there is an unmet need for not only the community of Lewistown, but our entire service area, and trying to look at people and where they're driving, and if Lewistown can be a closer drive than one of those other areas, we can keep them off the road. We know Montana roads are not the safest place for people to be, especially in the wintertime, but even in the summer.
The project has an $8.9 million price tag, and along with the grant from the Helmsley Charitable Trust, the center will contribute $1.9 million to the project. Additionally, the Central Montana Medical Center Foundation plans to raise $1 million through a community capital campaign. In partnership with the Billings Clinic Cancer Center, the Central Montana Medical Center will have a full-time oncologist, as well as a part-time radiation oncologist, and a linear accelerator machine. The Central Montana Medical Center, along with their partners at the Billings Clinic, say they're excited for the future of the new cancer center, made possible by the Helmsley Charitable Trust.
This opportunity really is, I'm sure you know, possible by the Helmsley Foundation, and Helmsley has been such a strong advocate for rural health care in our state in Montana, in this region. It's just great that they recognize and see the importance of the need for cancer care in the geography of central Montana.
Construction of the new facility will begin in the parking lot behind me in spring 2022 and is expected to be complete by summer or fall of 2023. In Lewistown, KAILEY NEITZEL, MTN News.
Thank you, Sean. We still have more to come after the break. We're headed to Butte, where they're celebrating German heritage with what other than beer. Stay with us.
More stories from the heart of the Treasure State are on the way when Positively Montana continues after this, sponsored by Whitefish Credit Union. Welcome back to Positively Montana, sponsored by Whitefish Credit Union.
Now, I know we are smack dab in the middle of summer right now, but a lot of potential current and former students are still thinking about college, mainly just how to pay for it. Well, that's a question that Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks would like to help answer. Starting in August, FWP, partnering with AmeriCorps, will begin looking for their next batch of members to help with education and parks programs across Montana.
Our AmeriCorps program currently serves 30 state parks across the state, and members could do things like education and interpretation programs. They also do a lot of land improvement, so they remove noxious weeds from park lands to help restore the ecosystems. And actually, since 2012, members have improved over 4,000 acres of park land, and that's equivalent to 3,000 football fields. So a really significant amount of land has been protected because of them.
In return, each AmeriCorps member will earn an education award, which can be used for college or to pay off student loans. And full-time members are even eligible for loan deferment, health care, and child care assistance. If that isn't enough of an incentive to give the program a look, Seth says that programs like this can help with future jobs in the outdoors.
Part of our work with our members is to help them on the next step in their journey in becoming professionals. And so some of our members have gone on to serve in National Park Service. There's one currently serving in Glacier National Park. There's others serving at different parks throughout the United States. So we're lucky in that we have members going on to contribute to this field and in the environmental field. If you love the outdoors, if you love parks, if you want to contribute to Montana, this is a great way to do so.
Seth added that most members serve a 10-month term of service and that the only real qualification is having a passion for our state parks. If that describes you, or you just want to learn more information about the program, head on over to this story on our website. Reporting from Helena, Andy Curtis, MTN News.
The Finlen Hotel has recently opened their new German beer garden. At the Finlen Hotel, a beer trailer sits behind a wrought iron fence, serving pretzels as big as your head, served with authentic Bavarian mustard and a stein of beer. The Goethe Institute and the German government hosted a year of German-American friendship by traveling throughout the country and selling authentic German beers and pretzels from the trailer. Butte was a stop on their list. J.J. Adams said that the trailer and much of the decor was purchased from the Goethe Institute and the German government.
The tents that you see here are from the Hofbrau brand of beer, which is a brewery that's owned by Germany. And it goes back to an act, like a purity of brewing act, where you could only put in a certain ingredients into the beer. And so a lot of national heritage and pride go into that beer. And then also these tables, tables came from Germany. They're authentic German beer garden tables.
This new beer garden was inspired by the German roots here in Butte. The German community in Butte were some of the very first pioneers that came here. The very first records of the Germans was in German Gulch in Silver Bow County.
We found that they really were the bakers, the butchers, and the brewers.
One of the most prominent brewers in Butte was a man named Chris Nissler.
Nissler was one of the very first brewers to come to Butte, and he opened his brewery at Nissler Junction, and it's still, that malt house is still visible.
Another standout decor piece in the beer garden is the fence designed by Jason Barnes.
It was salvaged from a building they're going to tear down back here for the new medical arts building. And then I just pretty much cut it apart in the panels. It's all the original paint. That's why it looks so cool. It's all the patina, you know. And I tried to save most of that where, you know, I just try not to burn it up too bad, and then the welds rust and whatever that I put on, and it makes it look even cooler.
While the beer garden is still under construction, you can come and enjoy a nice soft pretzel and a beer. In Butte, KAITLYN Aguiles, MTN News.
We hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Positively Montana. Each week, we'll be scouring the state, looking for good. Of course, if you know someone who meets the criteria, we encourage you to submit your idea online. We're looking for people doing good things, people trying to make a difference, and good things happening to those in need. That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Tim McGonigal. We'll see you back here next week.